to Patrick Fundaro here, co-founder at Biz. Excited to have on Gene Harris, who's the franchisee of Indianapolis for Painter1. Gene, thanks for taking the time to connect.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So we're talking, you have a pretty interesting background, served in the Navy, and then spent time during the Navy and after all over the United States. What led you to go the franchise path of business ownership? Is you had a lot of different options.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, kind of right out of the Navy, I started working for a little company called Hollywood Video. Back then, they were the competitor number 2 to Blockbuster, and grew up really fast with them. Was really successful. Was started out just a part time, have something to do in town, and then eventually became a district manager with 13 retail stores, and was running circles around guys that were 20 and 30 years my senior, and realized back then that I kind of got a thing for operations and running businesses, and it's just something that came naturally to me. And from there, I moved into multifamily residential real estate all over the country and kind of did the same thing with that. And I've always kind of just sat at the right hand of God is kind of what I always say. I've always been like the number 2 guy or VP or et cetera, or whatever. Or like with Hollywood, they only had like 100 stores. So I knew the president of the company and I was really intricate with the senior leadership there. And just kind of always wanted to do my own thing. I don't know now, it's probably 5 years ago. Just one day sitting there looking at my 401k and thinking about retirement and what life was going to look like and running the numbers. And I have 2 boys. One's 19 and one's 17. And my now 17-year-old is a special needs. He's on the autism spectrum. And realizing that there's not going to be 2 of us, there's going to be 3 of us. And what does that look like? And so we're just running the numbers. How do we take care of 3 people through retirement? And then in addition to that, and really this is really what pushed me over the edge, was then what happens to him after we're gone? And it was more or less, say we live on into our 80s, he'll be in his 60s probably. And then what does his life look like? And so, Stephen Covey calls it like a paradigm shift, right? It's changing how I look at things. And I really need to do something drastic to create something that was going to long lasting, that was going to continue to survive after we're gone. And really the only way to do that in my mind was to start my own business. And then from there, it was obviously franchising is one of the easier ways, not easiest, but it's definitely an easy way. And also odds of success are higher buying a proven business out the box. I call it kind of like a business in a box, so to speak, right? I looked at Amazon was the first one I did. The little blue trucks that drive around and deliver your packages.
Apparently, like if you got in on the ground, it was a cash cow. But now there's not much territory, and people are complaining about it for different reasons. But
oh yeah,
apparently years back, if you got in, you could earn a ton.
Yes, I dodged a pretty good bullet with that one, but it was really just because at the time you could purchase a franchise. So they're called DSP, delivery service providers, and they sold them as franchises. And at the time, if you were a veteran and you purchased a franchise, once approved and you opened, they would reimburse you 100% of your franchise fee. So not only could I get in, but I could get in for free. So I was like, I'm crazy. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest company in the world, successful, et cetera. I'd be crazy not to at least look at this. And I did. They ended up flying me to Las Vegas, and I got interviewed and I got approved. And I was supposed to open a Amazon DSP here in Indianapolis, but they hadn't opened enough warehouses yet. Kind of was on the bench waiting for them to build the rest of the other warehouses. And then I had a lot of concerns, some red flags, some things that really didn't quite check the box for me. And, coming from the real estate world, I hadn't done my due diligence and looked at anything else, honestly. And so I ended up getting connected with a franchise broker. To this day, I can't tell you how he found me. It's like magic. Like one day I'm just on the phone with him, right? You guys
should
do
like
that.
Tracking your web traffic and saw that you were on the Amazon DSP.
He's probably watching this right now while we're doing it. Like he's got me on in the corner somewhere now. I get on the phone with him, and just through discussions with him, we ended up looking at about 10 different companies, whittled it down to 2 or 3. And honestly, before I bought the Painter1, I looked at a cleaning business, a home cleaning business. And I literally went to bed that night, told my wife, like, we're going to be cleaners for a living, and with a straight face. And, I was like, you're crazy. And, but one of the things one of the boxes for me, it didn't check was recession proof or quasi. And there's no such thing as recession proof, but quasi.
I have a cleaner once a week, and if times are tough, that would go down to every month.
Like Nostradamus now, because I opened in October of 2019, and this little thing came around a few months after that. And so we'd only been open 5 months, maybe 6 months at the time. And probably got crushed, I can imagine. And but talked to Painter1 literally the next day. And obviously the rest is history after that.
How many franchisees were part of Painter1 when you joined in 2019?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe a dozen or less. There wasn't many. I remember our first conference, we were on a cruise in January of 2020, and we were just a little room with maybe a dozen of us in the room. So that's about it.
And
Yeah,
what's it looking like now?
I think we're up to about 40 locations nationwide.
So that's
About
solid
three
growth.
years, 3.5 years.
And what
Yeah.
led you to choose Painter1 after evaluating probably a lot of details, 10 other brands?
Like I said, for me, obviously the one thing was checking the recession proof box. The other thing was, I'd been operating in apartment community, institutional quality apartments all over the country for 20 years, from 2020 up until I opened Painter1 in 2019 or 2000, sorry, 2019. And obviously, when people move out, you have to paint apartments, and, thousands and thousands of apartments being painted. And then for some of the groups I worked with, we bought apartment communities and then we would rehab those. And so obviously a lot of painting occurred there. And I was around in the 08, 9, and 10, the last real estate crash. And I do
Still
remember
needed
that
painting.
we're still painting. That's right. And so I know how it's done. And obviously in the Navy, we did a lot of chipping and painting. We're out in the ocean. There's nothing to do except chip and paint. So I know how it's done. I know a lot about the products. I really don't enjoy painting, honestly. And then when I talk with Conrad and Jason, the way Painter1 operates, our KPIs or key performance indicators, the metrics that we look at are very similar to the apartment business as far as leasing apartments and sales, et cetera. A lot of those ratios, and they're probably more like laws of nature. Like a 30% closing ratio is probably across all businesses. That's just a number to hit, for example. And so it was those. The marketing, the way they do their marketing was very similar. Again, by that point, I started in apartments when we were still you had to go to the grocery store and get an apartment guide, like a book, and look at the different apartments on the pages, and that's how we advertised. There was no internet advertisers, none of that going on at the time. Eventually moved into websites. Eventually moved into online, Google, and all the other advertising companies that are out there. So, but a lot of what Painter1 does was very similar to that, and how we advertised and how we tracked and how we followed up the business side of it, the marketing, et cetera, was very similar. So for me, it was there was a lot of comfort there. There was a lot of easy. I understood this piece of the business, so I could very easily jump in there, and all I had to learn was the painting piece, the actual products, et cetera. Just the way they run the company with regards to we have a 10% equity share as owners. Also, that they
Yeah,
don't.
I've never heard of that. So
Yeah,
let's unpack that. So there's the franchise
sure.
brand level, 40 franchisees. If the business is sold, 10% of the profits would basically go to the franchisees.
That's right. Yeah. So if they sold it today, it'd be whatever 10% of that number was divided by 40. It could be 50, 60 on, down the road. But because really, if you think about it, the franchisor isn't the one really out there doing the things, selling houses, selling painting jobs and doing those things, et cetera. They're here and they're supporting us. But really, if you think about it, so I thought, that's super cool. Our motto is power the owner. And that's the thing that really probably resonates with me the most, because again, if I go back to when I was running Hollywood Video, they were so new. I was really allowed to kind of do my own thing, so to speak, and I was very successful at that. Like one of the examples I give was when I had 13 stores in Tampa, Florida, and about 9 months goes by, and then my boss comes to me. He says, "Hey, the SVPs are having an argument with the president right now because he wants to give you a discretionary bonus." And they're like, "If you do it for him, you got to do it for these guys, et cetera." And I was like, "Well, why?" He's like, "Well, when you took over Tampa, it was the top 10 least profitable districts in the company. And in 9 months, you're the number one most profitable district in the company." And yeah, no control over price, no control over product, no control over advertising.
You just
Right.
ran
So
it.
really don't
You
have
ran
any.
it as if you were the owner.
I did. And it was really just hiring people, empowering my employees, and really just providing better customer service. Really, at the end of the day, is how I was able to do. But I was able to do a lot of things that weren't necessarily in writing and et cetera. I just had a different way of doing things. I was very successful at that. And then later on, as they became public and things started to change, and they were more worried about the bottom line, they started telling me things I couldn't do anymore. And I'm like, well, you realize this is what did that, and that made us more money, but you don't
It
want me to do that
worked.
anymore. And so like, okay. And then, of course, when I went in the apartment business, kind of the same thing. I kind of took what I learned in the retail side in apartments. You do have more control. I can change the price of an apartment. I can choose where I advertise and et cetera. But I fell back on, I didn't use those as, I call it the levers, the three levers you kind of pull on in apartments. When occupancy goes down, they start, we run specials and we kind of kind of do things. I focused on customer service again. Again, I was very successful. And so again, buying my own franchise, I still want to run it like it's my business. And I don't want them telling me what to do. I want them to support me and help me, but really allow me to make my own decisions. And, if I have an idea and I want to advertise over here, I can. Or if I don't want to paint exteriors, I don't have to. Or if I want to do garage floors, I can go do that too. I can kind of make it how I want it with their support, so to speak. That's really what led me to picking Painter1.
And what's your team look like now? How many employees do you have?
We use a subcontractor model. So our employees are only for the business side of it. So I have an office admin, which I've actually created another company now, and we support other franchisees' back office admin support.
Cool.
And then I have a general manager here in Indy. I have an estimator here. And then I actually own another location. I opened up in March of last year in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so there I also have a general manager over there that kind of runs everything for us over there.
How many contractors?
We have about 5 crews right now. And that's the kind of thing too. They are subcontractors, but they mostly work, they continuously work for us over and over and over and over again. Some have been with me almost 2.5 years now.
And a crew, I don't know the space so much. Like, how many people are in a crew?
It can be anywhere from a solo guy that's not necessarily called a crew anymore. It's just a painter. But typically it's 2 to 3 guys is your typical average. You'll get a guy who'll have a helper, or you'll get a guy who'll have a couple, him and another guy, and then they'll have a helper. My largest, he has, on any given day, it's 8 to 10. And he's a little bit larger, and he's just grown with us. When he first started with us about 2.5 years ago, there's about 3 or 4 of them. He's just continuously added guys to his crew, and girls, a lot of wives and sisters and cousins and things like that come on, and he's done really well, and he's been able to have retention on his side because we're doing so well on our side. So we kind of, I tell him it's my job to go out, hunt it, and kill it. It's your job to cut it up in steaks so we can eat it. Right? and so he's been able to grow, and then now he can actually run 2 or 3 jobs for us a week. Because his crew's been with him so long, and he's learned how to supervise and work with them. We're also there to assist as well, but so that would be our largest crew.
How much did it cost more or less to get your Painter1 open and enough capital to basically pass the break-even point?
Today, I think we say about $75,000 is probably the good starting point. It's a $50,000 for Painter1. Today it's a $50,000 franchise fee, and then a $25,000 you need liquid to kind of get going. So, wrapping your vehicle, buying your supplies, operations for the first month, because you're going, the really only upfront cost for a Painter1 that you're going to have to pay out of pocket would be like for your leads. If you're using an Angie's or a Thumbtack or, some of these lead source gen services that are out there, you have to pay for those leads in real time. So you'll need, you'll need some bandwidth for that.
And
but
how much does a lead cost generally for your space?
Yeah, our average lead cost is about $70 a lead, but they can range anywhere from $50 up to $250, $300 a lead. It just depends on the lead source and the size of the home and et cetera. So
what's the customer value? And I know you're relatively early into your business, but these customers will come back to you in 4 years, 5 years.
I've never thought of it that way as far as like a long-term value, like what's a customer worth, so to speak.
But on the first job, like what would be the average?
Our average ticket is about $3,500.
That's solid.
That's the average. You can go from $3,500 to $4,500, kind of nationwide. Obviously, some marks a little bit higher, some marks a little bit lower, but that's about the average.
What are you happy in terms of like acquiring that customer? Like if you spend $300, is that a success? If you spend $1,000, is that a success?
So we look at average ticket as far as lead source. So when a lead comes in, like we talked about, $70, and then obviously we don't close all of those leads, right? So our goal is we want to run about a 70% lead to quote ratio. So if you have 100 leads come in,
that's pretty solid. 70% going to the next stage.
That's correct. Yeah. And so 30% you're paying for, you never get to get in the front door, right? You talk to them on the phone, or it's just a bad lead and we don't get a credit for that lead. And then of the 70%, our goal is to close 30% of those. right? So our goal is at least 30%. I always say, if you're below 30%, you got a problem. If you're above 40%, you're probably too cheap. You should raise your prices.
Okay.
And we run about 30% closing ratio. So cost per lead is what I look at. So I look at how much each lead was, cost per job, sorry. And then of the ones we won, we take our total spend, divide it by the cost per job. And then we run about $300 to $500 per job to get that customer. And then, so then you're at a $3,500 average job after that.
So besides like the paid advertising, the Angie's List, buying the leads, have you done any like guerrilla marketing to get contacts or trying to get referral sources going?
We're actually working on that as we speak. So there is, I've learned over the last few months that door to door is still very valid and active. Door knocking is still current and still works. So I have a 19-year-old freshman in college, and he's wanting to get into advertising and business and marketing, et cetera. And I said, you know what? I got just the job for you. So we're working on it now.
It's not like a crazy barrier to hit, because as long as you pay him $100 a day, and if he's able to get one lead,
it's better than that.
2 leads.
We run the numbers, so I could pay him $90. He could average $90 an hour, and the math works.
That's
believe it or
great.
not. So it's $30 an hour, $20 to $30 an hour for 3 hours worth of work. You should get be able to knock 10 doors an hour and be able to at least get one estimate per hour.
Really?
And then those estimate, and then we'll pay $60 for the estimate, and we can pay a little higher because the difference with that is if I get a lead through a paid lead source, that lead's also usually being sold to other. Exactly. Where if I go knock on your door, I'm probably the only one you're talking to, and so our closing ratio is will be way higher on those leads than a paid lead. So we could pay a little bit more there, and then it's just win-win, right? So the person's out there knocking doors, you're averaging $90 an hour, 3 hours a day, 3 or 4 days a week. That's decent money
for 19-year-old.
That's going to beat my $3.25 an hour I was making when I was his age.
How long did it take you, or does it take most people in the system to break even? Like, what did you have to inject more money after that 25K, or were you already breaking even in like 3 months?
I personally didn't. That's all going to depend on the owner and if they're a good operator or not. If you follow the model and you stick to it, then you're gonna do fine. I mean, for me, so kind of back up. So my goal was when I bought Painter1 was to build it up and sell it, and then take the equity that from that business and buy something that had a bigger equity requirement. Another, like for instance, McDonald's. Not that I want to buy a McDonald's, but like a McDonald's, like $1 million, right, or whatever it is. And it was $50,000 for Painter1. So you could sell Painter1 for a big number, take $250,000 and go buy another franchise that acquired that. And I opened October 2019. And also the painting business, I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. It gets cold here about middle of October. And so we stop outside pretty quickly, and there's no painting happening in the wintertime on the outside of the house. So you lose half your business in a sense to the winter. And then also you're driving into Christmas. And so as you do that, people are less wanting people in their homes and doing things. People are spending time with family and the holidays and et cetera. So you're just on a steady decline, right into January, basically. And my first month in business, we did about 35,000 gross or something like that. And then we did the same thing in November. Yeah. And I was like, this is really easy. And it's not easy, but I come from running multi-million-dollar apartment communities, all over the country. And I was like, I'm just getting the truck and go do an estimate. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll hire you. Let's go paint a house. I'm like, okay, let's go paint another one. And so I was like, and so that's when I kind of changed again. And it was like, why would I build this up and sell it to go take the money and go start all over with something completely different, totally brand new, no guarantee of success, no guarantee I'll like it. So why not open another Painter1? And again, for me, when I had apartments in Houston and Denver and Atlanta and Nashville, and so I'm used to hiring teams far away and managing teams far away. So for me, it was very easy to go, well, I'll just go open another location instead, and then open another location and another location, and who knows how many. But
are there many multi-unit franchisees like you in the Painter1 system?
Not. I was the first, and then there are now two. There are now two just recently this year that opened up another location.
That's a big testament because a lot of
It's
service-based
huge.
franchises are hard to scale up and go into different territories, especially what is that, like a 3-4 hour drive?
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's 2 hours from here. So I did Cincinnati because it was close. I also lived there for 2 years, so familiar with the market. It was easy to kind of go over there. My next goal was to go to Louisville, which is about 2 hours south of us, just to prove that I just didn't get lucky in Cincinnati and do it again. And then from there, it's like, okay, now I've built the model of what does that look like opening up a location far away, and then my mind is already in the next step is, okay, so how do then I can go anywhere. Then it doesn't necessarily need to be, I know
It's
necessarily,
just
I
wherever
shouldn't
the
have to
best
fly there.
opportunity is, where you can get crews and acquire customers on the cheap.
Yeah. I was going to call Jason and say, hey, what's the juiciest, best market you wish you had a location in today? And I'll take it, kind of thing. And whether that's me hiring a person and that person is their job is to go live there for a few months and get it going, or if they're to travel around, or, I don't know what that looks like today, but in my
It's a great
mind,
mentality. Like at Visa franchise, we've advised many foreign nationals that are moving from all over the world, and the ones that generally do the best, like they're like, "Hey, I'm open to these 5 cities or even more. Let's hear from the franchisor and hear
that's
where
right.
they think I'm going to be the most profitable." They
Yeah.
parachute in and they put their head down and grind it for like 2+ years.
100%. I mean, they should know. They're the ones with all the data. They're the ones, of course they know where the best place is. And who am I to be like, oh yeah, I think it's here. Or like, no,
And
okay,
they'll make
let's,
more money on the royalties, so it's
totally.
aligned.
Totally. So, just back to go to the Hollywood Video example again, running one store is hard enough in itself. But I always say, if someone doesn't show up to work today, you can physically cover that shift, right? You
Yes.
can physically come in and handle that. When I went from one store to 13 stores, whoa, it was a huge learning experience for me. And then figuring out, how to make that work was a totally different animal, totally different skill set that I learned, I was in my late 20s at the time. But I got it and obviously was very successful at it. And so it is a different skill set. And really at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like I dumb it down. It's really not this easy. It just comes naturally to me, but it's really just, I always say I hire the person, right? So I hire you, I believe whether you believe you're born this way or whether you were taught by your parents this way, do you genuinely like people? Are you genuinely easy to be around? etc. I can teach you how to push the buttons and turn the knobs. I can't teach you how to when you get to a certain age, you are who you are, really, at the end of the
Etiquette
day.
or
And yeah,
respect.
and then when you hire someone to do that, you really have to empower them and trust them. You inspect what you expect, right? You check on the things and make sure they're doing what they need to be doing, but not to the point where you're handcuffing them and you're telling, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. You're trying to control them. And so, like with Lynette, who runs Painter1 of Cincinnati for us, she didn't run a painting company. She didn't know anything about paint, nothing. She came out of the apartment business. She was actually managing 30 HOAs, which is horrible job. I mean, trust me, if you're managing an HOA, anytime your phone rings, it's someone mad about something, right? All day. That's all you're. I don't know how people could do that, but anyway, but she was very bubbly and very outgoing and easy to talk to. And when I met with her and I said, look, this is your baby. I'll teach you how to go do an estimate. I'll teach you these things, and I'm here to support you. And again, going back again for years, I've managed people. I've had hundreds of employees, and I learned a long time ago that, I tell you technically work for me, but really I work for you. It's my job to provide you the resources and remove obstacles so you can be successful. And so if you flip it around and you hire someone and you empower them to go take on the world, and you're there as their support and their backstop, and
You're the coach.
you're the coach. That's it. You're there and they're going to make mistakes. And that is, I tell them, like, that is, I expect you to, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough as far as I'm concerned. Like, you're
Yes.
going to fall, it's
But
going to
they'll make the
break.
same mistake like 2 or 3 times.
That's right. Then we got another issue. Yeah. But it happens. But I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we lost, $1,000. I'm not gonna blow you up over it. Like, I look at it as tuition. We pay tuition to go to
Yes.
school to learn things. We just paid the tuition for you to learn this. And now you learn. Yeah, not gonna do that again? Nope. Or we do it this way or do it that way. And same thing with like customer complaints. If we get a customer that gives us bad feedback, my team gets very upset. They get very people naturally get defensive and like, well, no, that's not me. And they're crazy. And there's one, I believe 1% of people are bad, 99% are good. I'm willing to do business with the 1% to get the 99%. But let's take this as a learning opportunity. This person, if this person telling us where we messed up, we did wrong, that's huge. It's very valuable. And they're giving their time to tell us how to be better at what we do. And if we learn from this, then all the people in the future are going to benefit from this bad experience. And so let's make this bad experience worth it to us, and then learn from that. So when you're running people far away or doing this, you have to, and that's where it breaks. So people start to feel controlled, they start to feel not supported or whatever. And then, then I'm driving to Cincinnati, once a month trying to fix things or hire new people or whatever. So
that's no fun. Yeah, I can relate to the negative feedback. Like the first 18 months for our YouTube channel, we would get some praise, but I would get like very critical feedback. It could be like random things though. Like I did a video on Kona ice and I called it ice cream instead of shaved ice.
Not online. People don't just blow you up with all the negative comments online.
But at the end of the day, like they're right. I was wrong. Yeah. And it's nice that I see that. And I had to check my ego and be like, get the feedback coming. Like I want to know when I'm wrong and I make mistakes, and I won't call it ice cream again. And I'm happy for those comments.
I use the sports analogy. I'm a huge sports fan. I love football is my number one favorite, and I use this one a lot. And it's especially to become an NFL pro football player is like 1% of 1% of 1%. I mean, there's you can go look it up. There's cool, really fun numbers to look at. Just how many people make it, and those who even make it are only there for a couple of years and then they're gone. So it's very rare to be able to maintain a career there. But so these are the best of the best of the best of the world. And what's the first thing they do after a game on Monday morning? They go into the room and they watch film and they criticize everything they did every single week over. And these are the best, and they're still making mistakes. So how could you feel like, oh, I just bought a business and whatever, and you're not going to make a mistake, right? I mean, come on. So,
reading the book Relentless, and that's a big part of it. Those elite athletes are relentless,
and you're just always striving to improve or to become better at whatever your art or skill or whatever it is.
So imagine, the financials aren't bad, given that you keep opening up new territories. Can you share anything, whether it's on the revenue side or earnings side, about your time with Painter1?
I'd say I run a little bit different animal, but I think the average is, you can expect like a 20% profit margin, 15 to 20% profit margin is totally doable.
Solid.
It's absolutely, if you're smart, and like I said, you follow the numbers and you follow the model, then it absolutely can happen. Where people get in trouble is when they're not managing their business. They're not, they're especially like your cost of goods sold. Your cost of goods sold in the painting business are your material and your painters. And if you're out there running jobs and you're just paying people and you're not paying attention to what percentage of the materials you're using or what percentage you're paying your guys, this is any business, right? But particularly to the painting business, you're definitely going to go out of business. Or if you're spending too much on advertising, or you're not advertising in the right places, you're not, like you asked me about my numbers. There's a lot of times I'll ask other owners. I'm also a mentor to many owners as well, and I help them out. And I'll ask, hey, so what are your COGS, or what's your advertising spend, or what's your percent? And they're like, I don't know. Well, we need to know. And I had a call with an owner the other day who was like, I said, look, we need to put money in all the buckets. This is what I tell them when someone first starts out. I say, listen, here are all the places you can advertise in your market. Some markets, certain advertising sources work. Some markets, that same advertising isn't as good for whatever reason. Maybe they don't spend money advertising or whatever, but we need to put all the money in all the buckets, a little bit of money, as much as we can, and then do it for 30, 60, 90 days. And then let's go back and look at the data, and then we can make decisions based on data, not, I feel like, yeah. So we can look at the data, and then if this one's better, then we can start putting more money, take away from this other one, right? And so anyway, so I said, I use Thumbtack, for example. I said, well, oh no, Thumbtack, I tried that. That doesn't work. Thumbtack is horrible, blah, blah, blah. So I pulled his numbers up. It's been open for 2 years. I said, you've gotten 6 leads from Thumbtack. How can we make a decision based on 6 leads in 2 years? Because he did it and he stopped it and he never went back, and he said, nope, they're gone. I use that as an example of just following the model and looking at your numbers and understanding what's happening and digging in. And I tell them, you can open your own business and fail on your own. You don't need to pay this franchise fee to do that. To me, I think that's where people get in trouble, is they bought a franchise, but yet they're not really business owners, not really cut out for it, possibly, or they don't want to do the work.
So it
Really, I
sounds like,
can't
yeah,
hypothesize what
you
all
always had the mindset, and you were fortunate to like be trained so well at Hollywood Videos and then at the apartment business conglomerate. And but if you don't have that mindset, I guess it's not just going to switch once you become a franchise owner.
Yeah, you're just not just going to buy a business and it's just going to magically start being profitable and making money. And that's not just the painting business. I mean, like I said, that's any business, right? You have to manage the business and you have to understand that. But all that can be taught is the thing, right? So this isn't physics or something you have to go to university for 4 years to finally master and learn. I mean, it's simple math. It's 1 + 1 is 2. There's not, my advice to new owners is, all right, we're going to open up, you're going to start bringing a business. I said, go paint a house, and then go paint another house, and then go paint another house.
Yes.
It's just simple. Like we most people have been in a house before, lived in a house, and a lot of people understand it's not a complicated. You're not going to go paint a warehouse, and you're not going to go paint a hotel. You're not going to go, shiny, we'll call it shiny penny. You're not going to go do that yet. You can eventually, but right now, and the thing is, we're talking about $3,500, a $3,500 job. So if you mess up, you're not going to lose your business overnight, kind of thing, right? So again, there's opportunity, and the other thing too, with the way our business is run, we're so cash forward too. Other than paying for your advertising, there really isn't any other expenses that you have to pay for until you got paid. So we get a deposit from the customer when they get on the schedule. Then we send the crew over there, and the crew puts the paint on we have a credit account with Sherwin-Williams. So they charge it to our account, and then the crew paints the house, and then we get paid. And then we turn around and we pay the painter and we pay the bill. So we get paid first, and then we pay them.
That's powerful.
Versus if you go into, versus commercial, you have to pay the painter, pay the bill, do all these things, and invoice. Yeah, and wait 30, 60, 90 or never.
And if there's some economic crisis, you could then have people delaying payments on you, and if you don't have your finances in order, have serious 100%. Issues.
So it's very, that's my point. I keep using the word easy, but it just, to my point is it's you got to really work. I feel like you got to work pretty hard to mess it up.
Stick to the system you bought into.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why. Again, another example. So I had a crew, Jim, believe it or not, it was Jim and Bob. That's their name. My wife was like, why are all the painters named Jim and Bob? Like, I don't know. So, but it was my first summer. It was like August or September. We opened in October. So it was the first summer. And this was through COVID. This is COVID summer. And they had worked for me about, 4 or 5 months at the time. And we were just outside a house wrapping up or whatever. And they were super excited and very ecstatic. And I said, we're talking, well, what's going on? Like, oh man, we just had the best quarter we've ever had. They've been in business for 5 years as a team, and they had an entity, their business or whatever. And it was the best quarter. Really, wow, how much? They said we did $70,000 this quarter. These guys are in their 50s, been painting for 25 years each. Yeah. They've been in business for 5 years themselves. They did $70,000 in the quarter. And I was like, wow, guys, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's a good job. And I'm sitting there going, I did $70,000 last month.
Yeah.
And I haven't been in business a year yet. So that's the kind of story I tell people. Like, that's the difference. That's why you bought a franchise. They call it a business in a box. So you open it up, the marketing's set for you, the how to do this, the, where to market.
Yeah. I mean, what I hear talking to franchisees, like, where if you do the business yourself, and speaking from experience, scaling up to $1 million in revenue, 4 years, 5 years, or through a franchise model, 2 years, if it's the right system, you're getting up to $1 million in revenue.
Easy. Yeah, I mean, not easy, but you should be, right? Following, I'm sure that. I mean, you can't just become a franchise. You can't have just an idea like, oh, I want to be a franchise, and tomorrow you're a franchise. Like, there's a lot of government hoops you have to jump through to prove yourself, and you have to approve a system or whatever. And so, follow the model and follow the advice of the others before you that are successful, and do those things. And great, you don't have to love everything. And then if there's something you don't like doing, then hire someone to do that piece for you, right? Hire someone who could be successful. Like, I'm not going to go knock on doors. I'll probably go out there for the first couple of nights. And you have you?
I'm just saying, knocking on doors, like, it's, if you're in your 40s, 50s doing that, it's tough.
For me, cold calling is tough, period. I've never liked it.
I think I've actually knocked on doors for fundraising efforts.
Have you? Okay.
Well, that was like
Yeah.
teens, raising for
Yeah.
like youth
I
football.
probably did it like when I was a kid in school, like selling candy bars or something like that. I remember doing something, but
Yeah.
I'm not the guy to, but one of my best friends used to sell security systems and he ran a team of people and he was really good at it and he loved it. And I was just like, I can't, I'm not the guy to call you on the phone and say, hey, Patrick, we'd like to renew your car's warranty, kind of thing or whatever. Right.
But you
But
can hire that guy.
if you come to me and say, hey, I'm interested in your product, if you walk in, if you call me and say, I'd like a painting estimate, or if you come into my store or come to my apartment community, hey, I'm interested in leasing an apartment, I can sell ice to an Eskimo. I'm cool as a cucumber. I
Inbound.
enjoy talking to people
Yeah,
but I just can't go, hey,
definitely. It's
sorry
much
to bother
nicer
you.
sales experience. We basically just have inbound. People come to us and then we get started. It's
Yeah,
definitely more
I can do that all
enjoyable, but
day.
you do leave
Yeah.
money on the table not doing outbound sales.
Sure, that's right. That's right. So anyway, my point, but that's outside my comfort level. But I know that about myself, and then so I'm like, well, I'm going to hire someone or find someone who it's not outside their comfort level, and then have them do it for me, and just manage that person. Or it could be the bookkeeping, right? It could be the accounting. It could be the estimating. We did have one owner. He kept getting told he was too expensive, and I was like, yeah, we know you're not too expensive because we can get competitive estimates and we can see where your pricing is. And there's other of our competitors who are also doing what we're doing and they're successful. And so he just wasn't a good salesperson, wasn't a good estimator. I didn't tell him that, but I said, hey, what if you hired an estimator?
Yeah.
It could free you up. You love running the jobs. He's really good at running the jobs and really good with the crews and really love that piece of it. And sure enough, as soon as he hired this estimator, boom, his closing ratios went up, everything went up, everything was rocking. Yeah. And so, just being able to recognize that this piece, you're doing it, but you don't love it. And people can feel that or sense that when you're around them. So put someone in that
energy
spot.
you give off.
Yeah.
Well, Gene, you've provided a lot of super helpful information for prospective franchisees, even current franchisees, franchisors, on what to expect and what to do, in the first few years of owning a franchise. So I really appreciate you opening up about your experience today. If someone wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way if you're open to talking to someone that's interested in a Painter1 or just wanted to pick your brain? Could they connect with you on LinkedIn or?
They could, well, the franchise, they could contact the franchisor, just go to painter1.com and go that route. If they wanted to get in touch with me directly, look up Painter1 of Indianapolis and call the office is probably the best way to do it. 317-520-8866. You can text that number too, or call it. I am on LinkedIn. It's Gene Harris, Gene Harris, and CAPS, and you can find me there as well. I think that's probably the best way to reach me. So I'm pretty accessible.
Gene. Well, really appreciate you joining today, and it was a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Patrick. I enjoyed it as well.